Hey y'all, in this lesson we are looking at using the Pythagorean theorem and applying it to solve problems. So we want to be able to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve problems. A reminder that the Pythagorean theorem basically says if I have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared will always equal c squared, where a and b are the legs and c is the hypotenuse. The converse states that if I can plug the numbers into a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then it is a right triangle. So our central question is, what types of problems can be solved using the Pythagorean theorem? Let's look at our first example. Kiana is using a kit to build the kite that's shown. The kit includes 3 different lengths of wooden dowels. How can Kiana decide which pieces of wood to use as diagonal braces for the top or bottom of the kite? So keep in mind that a diagonal brace means that on this kite, we want to be going from corner to corner. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to find that is draw a picture. So we're going to draw a rectangle. This represents, if you look straight down on the kite, that rectangle that it would make. And you can see that we've taken the 28 and 21 from our picture here, and that is what we're using to label the rectangle. Make sure to draw this rectangle into your notes. Now that we know what it looks like, we can find the diagonal because this creates a right triangle. So we'll use the Pythagorean theorem to find the length. We have our a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In this case, we are given 2 legs, so we're going to plug those in for a and b, square them, add them together, and finally take the square root to get that the diagonal length is about 35 inches. So this tells us the length of the diagonal of the rectangle is 35 inches. So Kiana could use the 35-inch dowel as a brace for the top or bottom of the kite. You try figuring out this problem. What is the length of the diagonal of a rectangle with a length of 19 feet and width of 17 feet? Again, I'm giving you the legs of this so that you can find the diagonal or the hypotenuse. Fill in the blanks to answer this question. You should get that it is 25 and a half or 25.5. Example 2, we're going to look at applying this theorem in 3-dimensional shapes. So Alex has a column aquarium with a rectangular base that is the height of 66 inches. That's like 5'6", y'all. That's like the height of me. It has a length of 10 inches and a width of 14.5 inches. What is the longest piece of cholla wood that Alex can buy to fit in his tank? Well, the first thing we want to do is draw a picture because I want to be able to see this and see where things go. So I've already done this for you in your notes. So we have a rectangular fish tank aquarium, and we see the height is 66, the length or depth is 10 inches, and the width across is 14.5 inches. We want the length of the cholla wood to go along the diagonal of this 3D space. So before we can find the diagonal itself that we want, we have to first find the diagonal of the bottom of the aquarium. So because we have here that the right triangle for the length of the wood, the right triangle with this diagonal includes the height, and then it would also include this base diagonal. So we have to figure out what that is first, and then we can use that to figure out our answer. So the diagonal on the bottom we'll find by using 10 and 14.5 as our legs, square them, add them together, and take the square root. So we have that diagonal that we're going to use in our final answer is 17.6. So now we are going to use that. So here I have that 17.6 is what that D is. So now we can have this triangle here, and we're going to use 17.6 and 66 as our legs. So now we put those in for A and B, square them, add them together, and take the square root. So you can see that the longest that we can have would be a piece that is about 68.3 inches long. That's still a pretty big piece, a pretty big stick, essentially. And we can also use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem to help us solve problems. Sandra bought a triangular shelf to hang in the corner of her room. Will this shelf fit in the 90-degree corner? So yes, normally you can depend on corner shelves that you buy having a 90-degree angle, but humor me. For the sake of this problem, let's say we don't know. We want to make sure that this is a right triangle because that will tell us that that is a 90-degree angle. So we're going to use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem to check and see if it's a right triangle. We have 18 and 24 will be our legs, and 30 will be our hypotenuse. So we're going to plug those values in. Oh, they missed the squared there. We square the numbers, add them together, and we see that we do get 900 equals 900, or that this does fit the Pythagorean theorem, so the shape of the shelf is a right triangle, and it will fit in the corner. Make sure you are copying down all the work as well as the answers when you're filling out your notes. This will help you later. You have one final try it problem. A company wants to rent a tent that has a height of at least 10 feet for an outdoor show. Should they rent this tent shown in your notes? So you can see we have 24 is the length along the whole base. So this halfway point will be 12. This is 15, and you need to use that hypotenuse and leg to find the height of the missing leg. We want it to be 10 or more feet, so they would rent it if it's 10 or more. They will not rent it if it's less than 10. So figure out the height to decide if they should rent this tent. You should come to the conclusion that no, they would not rent this tent. The height ends up being less than 10 feet. All right, summarizing. You can use the Pythagorean theorem and its converse to solve problems involving right triangles. Here we have an example. Okay, so if I want to solve this for finding the diagonal of a box, if I know the length, the height, and the width, I would first do the bottom portion using A, B, and C to find C, and then use C and X to find this D as a final answer. So I can use that Pythagorean theorem to help me solve problems. Your next steps are to submit your 8.3 notes, complete your build 8.3, and take your 8.3 mastery check. Good luck.